Before watching the video, don't forget to subscribe the channel and enable bell notification to never miss an update from us.
Hello everyone, this is Ashima and you're watching us on Entry channel. I hope all of you are doing wonderfully well. This is a video in which we talk about daily news events or the daily current affairs. So the discussion involves all the news events that are happening in the past few days, and we talk about those news events in a manner that it is going to help all the examination aspirants. So whether you're preparing for UPSC, you're preparing for banking, or you're preparing for any other examination, any other kind of examination, it is going to help you in all those examinations, because in this video you'll be learning about the news events. This video is all about learning of the events, right? Alongside, I'll be giving you a hint or hinting you about more and more questions that can possibly be framed. And for those who want to practice every day, for them we have an everyday quiz that happens on the app is by the name Entry. So via Entry app, you can take everyday quiz. Also, there is a live session that happens every weekend. That is, every Saturday we conduct a live session which involves the week's current affairs, right? So via that, you can participate in that session for learning more about the news events and practicing the questions alongside. Now, I'll be beginning the news event. And I hope we are on the same page when we begin with the first news event, that is EIU Democracy Index 2020. What is EIU? That is Economic Intelligence Unit. So EIU is Economic Intelligence Unit, and it releases Democracy Index along with a report. So we'll be having a look at both of them. So the title of the report was Democracy in Sickness and in Health. And alongside there was this along with this report, there was the index as well. So both of them were released by Economist Intelligence Unit. Now, if we talk about the index of the report, there were a total of 167 countries that were studied in the report. Now, when the report was prepared, there was certain category in which the countries were placed. That is, depending on the type of democracy a country is, accordingly, they were placed in certain categories. So what were the categories? They were flawed democracy, full democracy, hybrid regimes, and authoritarian regimes. These were the four categories. Now, 23 countries were placed under full democracy, 52 countries were placed under flawed democracies, 35 countries were placed under hybrid regimes, and 57 countries were placed under authoritarian regimes. These are the four categories under which the classification of the democracies was done by the Economist Intelligence Unit in the particular report. Now, if we talk about the index, in index it was topped by Norway, then followed by Iceland, Sweden, New Zealand, and Canada. So Nordic countries, as you can see, top three places are occupied by Nordic countries. What was rank of India? It is comparatively declined and was standing at 53, and the category in which India was placed was a flawed democracy. Why a flawed democracy? More of it because of the recent happenings that have been witnessed by the country on various other aspects, as we can see, various civil liberties and crackdowns, democracy backslidings and backlashing that has happened. Now, if we talk about the neighboring countries that India has, so if we talk about Sri Lanka was at 68th position, that is 10 places higher to India, that 10 place lower, which we can say. If we talk about the the ranking, it was 10 place lower at around 68th position and was again a flawed one. But what about Pakistan? Pakistan was at 105 and was a hybrid. So hybrid category was of Pakistan at 105 ranking, right? Now, apart from India, which of the following countries were flawed democracy? That was United States, France, Brazil, and Belgium as well. All of these countries were included in flawed democracy. Moving ahead, Indian Ocean Region Defense Ministers Conclave. Now, IOR Defense Ministers Conclave was held alongside the Aero India, which was organized, or which is organized every year. So, as Aero India was organized in Bengaluru, so the IOR Defense Ministers regime was also organized in Bengaluru. Host was India, and the theme this year was Enhanced Peace, Security, and Cooperation in Indian Ocean. A total of 18 countries had attended this whole meet, and the purpose of the meet, or why this meeting was organized, was there were various prospects or issues that were addressed during this meeting. So this dialogue was between the sharing the Indian ports with friendly nations. This involved marine pollution response activities. It involved defense industry cooperation among all the IUR nations for obvious reasons. Then sharing information or increasing awareness about maritime domain, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. All of these factors were covered under this meeting or conclave which was organized, right? Now, out of all the 18 countries that attended, 4 countries defense ministers had attended, and 6 countries high commissioners had attended the meeting, right? Now, then going ahead with disinvestment strategy. Now, we all have read about the budget. We have seen that government is planning on a lot of disinvestment in a lot of sectors, that is moving away their investment from certain sectors. So, what is the strategy? How is it going to be implemented? For that, a committee has been formed, or a panel of ministers have been selected, and those panel of ministers are going to decide which sectors, which investment requires to be kept by the government. So Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, or DIPAM. We talk about that. DIPAM, Department of Investment and Public Asset Management. They have stated that a panel of ministers is going to be set up, and that is going to be regarding the number of public sector companies that need to be retained in the strategic sectors. So what is the panel comprising of? That comprises of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and Nitin Gadkari, who is a road transport minister as well. Right now, if we talk about what is the sectors that have been identified as per the budget speech, so there are 4 strategic sectors that have been identified that involve the transport and telecommunication, power, petroleum, coal and minerals, atomic energy, space and defense, and banking, insurance and financial sector. Over here, we have already seen from insurance sector, IPO of LIC is soon to come out. That was already announced in the segment, right? Now, in these sectors, a bare minimum central public sector enterprise will be maintained by the government, right? And in other sectors, the CPSEs are going to be privatized. Right now, a preliminary list is going to be prepared first of all as to where this investment needs to be done and what percentage needs to be done. And the government has targeted to conclude the strategic sale of Air India, which government has been trying to sell from so long, and BPCL and Pawan Hans and Neelchal Ispat Nigam Limited, Shipping Corporation of India, IDBI Bank. There are a lot of sectors where the government is still looking to complete these sectors, and they are going to do it most probably soon. Then we have RBI, which has decided to make risk-based internal audit mandatory. So RBIA is going to be made mandatory soon enough by RBI. So what is going to happen in that? It is going to be made mandatory for selected non-banking financial companies, or NBFCs, and urban cooperative banks. So it is going to be mandatory for non-banking financial companies and UCBs. What range is it? So all NBFCs with asset size of 5,000 crores will be implementing. And if we talk about urban cooperative banks or UCBs, then those with asset size of 500 crores will be set up. So 5,000 crore for NBFC, 500 crores for UCB, and both of them are going to implement this scheme, which requiredly or mandatory needs to be implemented by March 31, 2022. So they can take their time, but not much of the time for taking out the implementation of this scheme, right? Now, if we talk about what exactly is government trying to do via these, see, they already have internal audit system, but usually the focus is to test the transaction and accuracy and reliability. But via this system, they are going to measure how much risk is involved in a particular, you can say, investment that the government is, or that sector is going through. right? So it is an audit methodology in which overall risk management is going to be done over the framework of the organization, and it will provide an assurance to board of directors as well, because once that is done, the board of directors can see how much risky assets they have and how much non-risky ones or sure shot ones are there, and that is going to help them take the further decisions, and that is why this particular aspect has been taken. Next, a few one-liners. Central government has confirmed a written reply to Lok Sabha about presence of 1,600 tons of lithium deposits, the first deposits that have been found in India and Karnataka. But the quality of lithium that is present, and whether it can be used and is it going to be helpful extraction or not, that is still to be done. That is still going to be conducted, but it has been confirmed that we have found 1,600 tons of lithium deposits in Karnataka. Then Moody's have released their GDP forecast. So according to that, they have given a percentage of 17% growth in financial year 2021 in the terms of GDP growth. And this is comparatively bigger as of the budget announcement. Budget had put it at 14.4%, or India had put it at 14.4%, and Moody's has put it to 17% growth rate. Right? All right. So Moody's is a very important report, and you need to be aware about what this predicts. Right? Then Villipuram District Administration of Tamil Nadu has issued the first declaration under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So under this, they have presented their first declaration, and it is to declare Kaliveli wetland as a bird sanctuary. Right. So over here, first of all, you need to know where is this Kaliveri wetland. This is the second largest brackish water lake of South India and is present in Tamil Nadu. Right, and it is the first largest. It is the largest one of South India is in Pulicat Lake, and second one is Kaliveli wetland. Right, and we all know that wetlands are of primary importance as of now, and India already has a lot. So furthermore, we are working towards bringing in more and more wetland conservation sites. Right. Now, why do they want to convert it to a bird sanctuary? So, as per the 2004 report of the Indian Bird Association, Kaliveli wetland has about 20,000 bird visits every year, and that is a very large number with a lot of migratory birds like white stork and black-tailed godwits, Dublin. So, because of them visiting a lot, and a lot of other species like cold subratic, Central Asian, and from Siberia, because of that, they wanted to be converted to a bird sanctuary rather than keeping it as a wetland. Right. Next, Swar Bhaskar 100 is a birth centenary celebration of Pandit Bhimsen Joshi that is going to be celebrated soon, or it has been announced to be celebrated now. All right, and this is going to also have a program by the name Abhivadan. Right, so Abhivadan is a musical program that is going to be conducted by Arya Sangeet Prasar Mandal. Right. Then we have NCPCR, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. They have identified 50 religious places for intervening on zero tolerance towards child labor, and among them is also Taj Mahal and Sri Ram Janmabhoomi, where you can see a lot of child labor being or happening. There's Bodh Gaya also, there's Kumbh Mela also, there's Haji Ali Dargah also, a lot of places, Rishikesh, and a lot of places where there have been certain instances of child labor, of child begging have been found. So they are going to intervene in all of these religious places now to stop that from happening. Then Indo-US Joint Military Exercise Yuddha Abhyas is going to begin soon in Rajasthan. That is going to start on 8th of February, and it is going to be conducted till 21st of February. So here you need to know about the name of the exercise, where it is going to be held, and when it is going to start. Then we have Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar and Jal Shakti Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat. And Minister of State of Jal Shakti, that is Ratan Lal Kataria, Petroleum Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, Animal Husbandry Minister Giriraj Singh. They all have unified and launched a single portal which is for progress of Govardhan activities of India, that is handling the solid waste by India. So unified portal is being launched under Swachh Bharat Mission Phase 2, which was announced in the budget. Right. So in that, for how the Gobardhan scheme is working, how we are managing that solid waste, how the farmers' income are being affected because of that, increasing or decreasing. So for all of that, this is going to happen. But what does Gobardhan stand for? Because I've already put it in capital. So what exactly is it? It is galvanizing organic bio-agro resources. Galvanizing organic bio-agro resources Dhan scheme. So this scheme is by the name Gobardhan, and it is a part of Swachh Bharat Mission Grameen, right? And it was launched by Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation. So it was launched by Drinking Water and Sanitation Ministry, and all these ministries have come together to form a unified portal to check the progress of this whole scheme. Right now, with this, I'll be taking your leave. I hope this session has been helpful to all of you. And for more such updates and more such videos, you can subscribe to the channel. Do hit the like button if you find this video helpful, and share the video